Hi there, I'm Alessandra Latour, a leadership expert with over 15 years of experience leading teams and developing leadership programs for over 400 leaders. I've had the privilege of designing learning programs for companies ranging from 15 to 5,000 team members, and I've earned a Doctor of Education degree to make sure that all of the programs I develop maximize learning and action. Through the Latour Leadership Academy, I empower emerging and existing leaders to embrace their authentic leadership style, create team synergy, and foster a positive work culture through curated and personalized learning experiences. In this podcast, we'll talk about how leadership can be found in everyday activities and provide practical tips for those who are new to managing or leading a new team. If you're a leader or hoping to be one, by title or not, I'd love to connect, get to know you better, and find out how I can help. You can grab a free resource on my website, latourleadershipacademy.com, and sign up for my weekly email newsletter where we talk about leadership skills, network, and share action-based ways to enhance team collaboration and positive productivity. Today's mini-sode covers tips for maintaining leadership presence during remote meetings and balancing assertiveness with approachability. Let's get started.
So the first question that came in was about maintaining a strong presence in virtual meetings or virtual presentations. And so I don't know how many of you are in a remote setting versus in an office setting, but in an office setting, we tend to have a lot of chit chat when a meeting is starting or presentation's starting. You're coming in the room, you're introducing yourself to people, and there's a really interesting dynamic there that we don't necessarily get in the remote space. So there's a couple of things that I would recommend in remote presentations or remote meetings that you can do. And I'd say probably a couple things you can do ahead and a couple things you can do during that session. Ahead of time, it's great to reach out to the participants that are coming to your meeting or coming to your presentation, introduce yourself a little bit. If you have any kind of handout to give them that would help them understand what you're going to be talking about a little bit better, maybe not exactly what you're going to say, but something that might stimulate their brain a little bit to think about that topic before they come in. And you don't want to make it feel too much like homework, but a little teaser is a good thing. And then when you're in the meeting, what I would recommend is really looking at your body language. So in a Zoom meeting, you only have kind of the chest up part here, but you can still talk with your hands a little bit. You can still take up space. So if I were to be in a more quieter, more, I don't want to use the word submissive, but I'm going to use it because I can't think of something else right now. That kind of position where I'm not authoritative in the meeting. I might kind of be hunched. I might be kind of sitting back a little bit. I might be leaning, making myself as small as possible, right? And so if you want to feel a strong presence in virtual meetings or presentations, you want to take up space, like move your arms out a little bit, bring your camera in so it's a little more focused on you, feel like you're taking up space. Another tip for body language be make sure that you're making eye contact with the camera and you're trying to look at the different participants. Now, in a remote meeting, you see them on your screen and you see them little tiny pieces, but you want to actually make them feel like you're talking to them. So if you focus on the camera and don't worry about necessarily what they're doing in their little video boxes, you're actually going to connect with them a little bit better. Now, you're going to need to look at those boxes to see how they're responding to you, but you can look at the camera to get more of that personal, I'm focused on you method. And then the other thing that I would recommend to have a strong presence in virtual meetings or presentations is to set expectations when you're talking. So for example, if I'm leading the meeting, I might say, I might have sent out an agenda ahead of time. And I would say, okay, let's follow the agenda today. We're going to open up with this topic. We have about 5 minutes to talk about this, and then we're going to move on to the next thing, unless there's something that comes up that we need to spend a little more time. And so I'm going to set that expectation for you. On item one, we're going to talk about how we're going to deliver the learning to our learners. And I want us to discuss, for about 5 minutes or so, and then we'll see if we can come up with some concrete examples or concrete action steps that we want to take based on that discussion. And so I'm setting that expectation. This is how long we're talking. This is what we're talking about. And then finally, I want action steps at the end, right? And sometimes maybe you're not looking for action. Maybe you're looking for purely discussion. So you might say, we're just going to have a discussion today. There's not going to be any decision made. We just want to have kind of an introductory talk to this topic. And so if you set those expectations that you're driving the meeting and that you want collaboration from everyone else and how you're going to make decisions. So maybe the decision has to be made by you, but you want your team's input. You might be saying, I realize that I'm going to end up taking what we're talking about today, and I'm going to put that together and come out with what the decision is going to be on this. But I'm really excited to hear about what you have to say. right? So those are some strategies you can use to maintain that strong presence during that virtual meeting. And then, one last one for you. When you have people talking and you need to regroup them and move on to the next thing, what you can do is you can say, I really appreciate that we have more to say on this. We can either continue here based on what you need to do with your meeting, or we could table it and talk again some more at next week's meeting, or let's set up a separate meeting to talk about this topic solely, right? So you're, again, setting that expectation of, I'm really happy you're contributing, but we can't stay here all day. We have to move on to something else. But here's when we can talk more, or if we can talk more. All right, so I'm really excited to hear what your thoughts are on strategies you might use in a virtual meeting or a virtual presentation. So again, come join us over in the LinkedIn group and let's talk a little bit about that. All right, so let's see. The next question that came in was about how do I balance assertiveness with approachability to establish a commanding yet relatable leadership style? That's a good question, because I think a lot of times people will see assertiveness and think aggressiveness. And I know from my own background, I had to learn how to take it down a notch so that it was approachable assertiveness, not aggressive assertiveness. And so I think that's the main thing that I found useful to figure out that balance is to think about how others are perceiving me, right? So when I'm saying something or when I'm doing something, how is the other person going to take that? Right. So I might be saying, like, if I think back to my academic days and I was teaching, I might, ask a question and a student might have an incorrect answer. And so how I approach their incorrect answer plays that line between assertive approachability and aggressiveness, right? I could say, no, that's wrong. Somebody else have the answer. And they're going to feel like, oh, I don't want to ever volunteer an answer again, right? She's going to tell me I'm wrong. But I might also say, hey, it's really interesting that you say that. Why do you think that? Or what brought you to that answer? Sometimes why can make people defensive. So if you say, how did you get there? What brought you to that answer? That's a little bit kind of a play on words, so they don't feel like you're saying, why did you do that? Right. So you could say something like that, oh, that's a very interesting answer. What brought you to that conclusion? Or that's a interesting contribution or interesting method of doing this project. What do you see are the benefits and disadvantages to that approach, right? So I'm asserting that we need to think more about it, but I'm not calling you out for doing something wrong, right? So I think that assertiveness, aggressiveness thing, especially for women, can come across kind of tough to navigate. I'd love to hear what you all think about that as well, especially the seasoned leaders we have with us. So kind of think about what others are thinking about what you're saying or what you're doing and how they're perceiving that. And I'm not talking about like make it all lovey-dovey fluffy, right? You still sometimes need to be direct, but you want to anticipate what they're going to think when you say that or what your tone might be, right? There's something different about you're wrong versus you're wrong. And let's talk about that.
Thanks for joining me for this mini-sode. If we're not already connected on LinkedIn, you could find me there, sharing practical tips and insights on all things leadership. And don't forget to grab the free resource on my website, latourleadershipacademy.com, and get more great tips directly in your inbox. Have a great rest of your day and see you back here soon.